All right. Welcome, everyone. We are very excited to have you for this very special panel. Ask the Experts, Careers in Cybersecurity. My name is Stephanie Shepley. I am with Fairfax County Economic Development Authority, and my role is to help connect our partner companies with you wonderful students. We have a really great lineup for you today. I'm going to go ahead and pass things over to Hannah Landers from the Pamplin College of Business Career Services, who will be moderating our lovely panel. Hannah, take it away.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. As Stephanie said, we're going to be talking about careers in cybersecurity. So we're really excited that you all are here. And just to jump right in, my name again is Hannah Landers. I'm the Assistant Director of Career Services here in Pamplin, and we have some wonderful experts with us here today. I'm going to let each of you introduce yourself. I'm going to start with you, Justin. You look ready to go, unmuted. Can you tell us where you're from and why you're an expert in cybersecurity?
Hey, where I'm from, I am currently residing in Frederick, Maryland. My office is in Northern Virginia. I work for ENSCO. My role at the organization is the Director of Information Security and Compliance. Anything else you want me to elaborate on, or?
Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. We'll get lots of time to share additional thoughts if they come to you. So, Salil, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure, thank you. I think I'm so very excited to be amongst students and other colleagues in the cyber frame. My name is Salil Sankaran, and I am the president of the Ampcus group. And cybersecurity is so important for us that we have a 100% subsidiary called Ampcus Cyber that focuses on cybersecurity. I am based in Chantilly, Virginia, but we're a global company. We are all over the world, and we have around 18 offices in the United States, and I'm the president of the entire group.
Perfect. Thank you, Ali.
Yeah, thanks so much. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ali King. I'm the VP of Government Affairs at Forescout. We're a cybersecurity company, and I'm currently in Northern Virginia. We are global with about 1,000 employees. And within my role and responsibility, I am responsible for all of the relationships with Congress. So that's all the lobbying, the policy, and the partnerships. And we count every single department and agency among our customers, with the exception of the intelligence group. But looking forward to your questions, and thanks again for having me today.
Thank you for being here. And Sarah.
Good evening. I'm Sarah Hayes. I'm the Director of Innovation and Workforce Development for the Commonwealth Cyber Initiative. We are a cybersecurity consortium comprising 46 public colleges and universities across Virginia. We have a goal of research, innovation, commercialization, and workforce development. So in terms of cybersecurity, all of it is important to us.
Perfect. Well, thank you again so much for being here. We're going to dive into some questions, but students, as you're hearing our questions, we are going to open up for questions at the end. So go ahead and throw them in the chat as you think of them, and then we'll answer them all after our kind of set questions. All right, so we're going to toss this first one to everyone. I'm going to go down the same line, starting with you, Justin. How do you define cybersecurity in today's context, and why do you believe it's an essential field of study?
Ooh, well, I think first and foremost, cybersecurity it's everywhere nowadays, right? I think about my current role and my involvement with the organization. When I got into cybersecurity and got into IT, 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, my involvement was very much just in the aspect of protecting the network. I find my day to day now constantly involved with every aspect of the organization. I'm in business meetings, I'm in contract meetings, I'm in discussions about efforts that we're doing, things that we want to do in the future. And everything right now revolves around some level of security of our data and of our network. Due to the persistent threats and meeting complex cybersecurity requirements and regulations, cybersecurity has become much more involved in everything that an organization does. Since cyber is ingrained into everything that we do in that current context, in this role, that's kind of where it's evolved. Everything we are cyber, and cyber is the business.
Yep, I totally agree with Justin. So anything what we do, I mean, of course, you see that we are on our mobile phones probably 23 hours and 59 seconds or 24 hours, right? I mean, we have. We sleep with the mobile phones. I mean, we are accessing all applications. Banking is through that. We are using Zelle. We use, anything to everything, all the applications that are being built. So the fundamental step of anything that gets built is, of course, it used to be DevOps, but now it's all about dev security and operations. So you involve the security folks from the day one. They would come in and they are the ones who would bring in all the controls. They're the ones, who would make sure that the application are built as per the standards, security standards, and they would make sure that the rollouts are happening and it's happening as in a very cyber safe manner. And it is, and it's not easy, right? I mean, no matter what you do, the cyber hackers are probably 10 steps ahead of you, right? So one has to be very, very careful from that. And that is where defensive security comes in. So I would say cybersecurity is in everything, right? I mean, today people are talking about LLMs. I mean, people are using ChatGPT. There are other foundational models, so many foundational models that people are using today, still in the proof of concepts and proof of value stage within the industry as well as within the government. But again, it's going to be in everybody's life in the next 2 to 3 years, and then comes quantum computing after that. And when quantum comes, it's going to be super super fast. I mean, it's going to even hack the AES encryptions from a user interface or from a login perspective. So once that happens, there are various ways that one has to do from a defense perspective. So I would say, I agree with Justin. Cyber is in everything, and I think cyber is the best career, which is also out there. And I think everybody should, study cybersecurity, whether either full-time cyber or as a part of their curriculum.
Yeah, thank you. Ali, Sarah, anything to add?
Sure. So I'll go ahead and give you my perspective on this, which I agree with all the panelists so far. It's pretty impressive, and I'll kind of put it in context of how I understand it and how I approach it. And so this is not my original definition. It actually comes from CISA. I worked there for quite a few years. So they were the second youngest federal agency after Space Force. And I thought their definition's really good. So I'm just going to read it to you. So it says cybersecurity is the art and science of protecting networks, devices, and data from unauthorized access or criminal use, and the practice of ensuring confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information. And so I really like the emphasis on art and science. To be able to do this, there isn't one homogeneous skill set. It really is a spectrum of skills that have to come together to really understand how to best position not only like a technical solution, but there's also a policy piece involved. And then the other piece, because you think of it as a triangle, there's tools, there's policy, and then you have a workforce, right? You guys are really smart people at Virginia Tech. I remember I applied, I didn't get in, so I went to George Mason instead, but you're really smart people. But if I were to hand you a piece of software that I say, this is the most powerful software, you're good to go, right? You don't need any training. You don't need any technical support. You don't need any hardware, any of that. That'd be really difficult. And so that's kind of what we are looking at a large enterprise level. I'm sorry, large level. Of course, there will always be people who are able to have the aptitude and the curiosity to be able to take things and be self-taught and learn and work independently. But where we currently sit, that's just not very common. And so I would kind of reiterate what's already been discussed here and just let you know that today it's kind of hard pressed to find something that isn't connected to the internet or you don't have a digital footprint. And every single one of those digital footprints is something that needs to be protected. It needs to be understood. There's a level of responsibility, you as a user, and also coming from a product or a vendor that you want to be a part of. I know that CISA has done a lot of really good work trying to reach out to general public and say multi-factor authentication is important for you. You need to do your software updates because I feel like a lot of people are sleepwalking into traffic from a digital perspective, We're really good about understanding what physical security looks like. We have a really long way to go from a digital perspective, and really looking forward to your questions and diving into some of the other questions that you guys have teed up for us today. So thanks.
I'll just foot stomp on that a little bit here. I did go to Virginia Tech, but I am not a cybersecurity practitioner. I was a political science major, and I got my first master's in political science, and then I went and got an MBA. So I'm not too far from where all of you are sitting right now in the Pamplin School of Business. And I still work in cybersecurity, sort of. I'm a project manager by trade. I manage multi-million dollar projects and programs and people and all of that. And it all has to do with cybersecurity. And so my definition for you today would be that cybersecurity is a business problem. It's not a technology problem. And I think that that is the unique perspective that all of you will be able to bring coming from Pamplin, whether or not you're minoring in cyber, if you're taking any courses in it. I think the ability to look at cybersecurity as a business problem and how it affects the business and how it needs to help the business is going to be crucial moving forward in today's workforce. Because as everyone has already said here, it is ubiquitous, it is everywhere. But some of those decisions still need to be made on a business level and not just a technology level and not just a dollars and cents level. Sometimes the ROI needs to be examined in a much more a broader aperture than just dollars and cents. And I think that the perspective that you all are going to bring into cybersecurity from a business standpoint is going to be very crucial. So I think you're in the right place.
Perfect. Thank you all. That was a great start to this. I'm going to jump around a little bit because I know students are going to want to hear the answer to this. Justin, could you talk a little bit about what skills students should focus on to work effectively with AI and prepare for AI-related skills?
Ooh, well, so in my world, we use AI constantly, right? I use it to research problems, right? Which is immensely important, right? So we now can figure out solutions to complex problems quicker. We have AI embedded in almost all of our cyber tools at this point. So we are able to quickly identify false positives and then use those same tools to now focus on the more important things of our daily tasks. We have the ability now to use AI to now predict things possibly in the future using those same tool sets. But there's a flip side to that, right? Our adversaries have access to AI, so they're always going to be able to have technology now to better themselves, right? To be able to create malware, to detect. To basically create malware that our AV solutions currently cannot detect. They're going to be able to. I'm sitting in a forum recently where they basically had a individual speak into this microphone and just say a couple words. And then they took those words and they basically were able to make that individual's voice now replicate. So this term of a deep fake. And they were able to kind of go through this mechanism to show that, hey, your executive staff in your company, these folks are going to be able to, you're going to have, now we're just deal with phishing. So in my company, we constantly deal with phishing attacks from our executives, sending text messages to folks in our company saying, hey, buy gift cards. That's the big one we deal with constantly, right? But it's going to get to the point where they're going to pick up the phone and it's going to be, hey, this is Joe Blow. I want you to do X, Y, and Z. And people are going to go do that or unlock my account, do these things. And that's the real issue that we're going to have to deal with AI is how do we evolve over the next, weeks, months, and then years to better address that threat? Because that's the real threat. It's not a human threat anymore. It's a threat to which will grow and evolve faster than we will as people. And we're going to have to be able to catch up with it.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Allie, any additional thoughts there on some skills, soft skills, technical skills, certifications that students should maybe be thinking about for a career in cyber?
So for a career in cyber, just to kind of give you a little bit of background, I have similar education to Sarah as well. And, I went into the federal government about 15 years ago. I was a civilian in the Department of the Navy, and I did foreign military sales for major weapon systems. And while I was focused on the non-digital parts of the job that kept creeping in from a requirements perspective. And I became more and more curious about it. And funny enough, uh, the hardest part of that job was the cybersecurity requirements that came about for that. And so that just kind of opened doors for me to go to the Pentagon and then also be a defense fellow, go to Capitol Hill. And so while, yes, like certifications, I would put a high premium on them because one of the things that I think you'll run into as you look at opportunities in the workforce is like, it's great that you have a 4-year degree, that you made that investment, but a lot of employers are going to want, experience as well, or they're going to want you to have the skill-based prerequisites, which are really hard to get unless you can do some of these certifications. And so if you're not super technical yet, I would recommend that you look at Security Plus. That's like a really good introductory cert, and you can sign up on Coursera. I believe it's like $50 a month for a membership, and you can take as little or as much time as you want to complete the prep that Google made a huge investment to be able to provide a really in-depth and easy to follow prep session. And then you can go and take the exam. Also, if you're a veteran, I want to highlight this for you as well. Any cybersecurity certifications that you pay for, you can get reimbursed for that as well. But the most important thing is to be able to have something on your resume in addition to your education. So a good friend of mine runs cybersecurity division, policy division out of FBI. It's become hugely, popular. They get like between 5,000 and 7,000 applicants a year. And she always tells me, she's like, if you know any good people, I don't even really, and sorry for the, educators online, it's really hard because as they neck down like these great applicants, they all have fabulous educations, and so the next thing they go to is, what certifications do you have, like what hard skills do you have? And if you have some of these certifications, or at least one of them, or you could say in progress because you're working on it, that will set you apart. And then also kind of like teasing in the AI piece. There's a lot of like fear mongering around AI. It's going to take your jobs. Oh my God. That same point was made when you had ATMs come online. They're like, well, what are you going to do with the bank tellers? They'll go work somewhere else. But, it's one of these things that still exists. And you see it in like grocery stores and stores. We have like self-checkout. There's always going to be some, issue around that. But what I will tell you is AI is not going to take your job. Somebody who knows how to use AI and be very effective and do it ethically is going to take your job. So there's like a running joke that's being tossed around that says that AI is corporate Ozempic. And so kind of keep that in mind as you approach how you can leverage these new tools and how you can, again, distinguish yourself between other really, qualified applicants. But make sure that you are aware of what's going on in this field. Again, like whether you want to be super technical or you want to work on the policy side where I am, it really is your responsibility to always show an interest and what's happening, because you never know what doors will open for you, and you don't want to be in a position where you are completely unaware of what's happening around you, because this field does move very quickly. Thanks.
So I would just like to add, if you take cyber, right? So you can divide it into, what, of course, Ali just said. You could have the policy piece of it, and then you can have the standards side. Like, obviously you've heard about the ISOs, you've heard about PCI, you have high trust, right? So you have those standards which are there. Then of course you have the regulations, and then I would put that under, I mean, if you take the policy out, but if I would just put it under privacy and audit piece, right? So that's more from a governance, risk, and compliance side. So there are certain certifications that you can do, and I would come, in a minute on the certifications. On the other side, you have, the offensive security and you have the defensive security, right? So there are certifications that you could do from that perspective. So offensive security would be that you would do a red teaming exercise, for example, right? Tomorrow, a company can come, let's say Ampcus can come, and I could challenge my cyber experts, and I would say just go ahead and do a red teaming. That means that you don't even know anything about the corporation. You just go ahead, you go after the IPs, you go after the applications, you go after the network, right from outside, and you exploit the vulnerabilities which are out there, and then you get into the system, right? So that is one piece of it. And then you have the defensive piece of it, where you could, you do blue teamings. That means you do penetration testings, you do vulnerability scans. You can have a security operations center where you could work as a SOC analyst. But largely, if you want to be on the GRC side, which is governance, risk, and compliance side, you can do certifications like there's a CISA certification, which is called Certified Information Systems Auditor, right? So then you're an auditor. So you need to understand what the standards are. Then you need to make sure all the controls, from a NIST framework, you get all the controls, and then you audit against those controls, right? So that's a certification as a systems auditor. Then you could also become, once you get certain experience, then you could go ahead and be a certified information security manager. You can take that certification. Then there is a certification from a risk perspective, right? I mean, so what are the risks which are out there? So there is a certification in risk and information systems control. So that is, one certification you can take. When it comes to offensive side, of course, right, you could do with a certified ethical hacking certification. And once you get close to around year-long experience being a ethical hacker, you could take an OSCP certification. So these are like certifications. When you have, you would be you will be completely unique from other folks. So obviously, we as a company, we look for certifications. We do make sure that we train people and we get them those certifications when they join us.
I just wanted to comment on something on certifications. I realize that it can be overwhelming, but I want to make all the students aware that there are lots of resources that are available to you in order to get those credentials and to get them paid for. So I'm going to put in the chat here, this is something called Fast Forward Virginia. This is only for students who are Virginia residents. So you must prove Virginia residency in order to qualify for this. This pays for up to 2/3 of the total cost of the credential, but it will include like a boot camp or training course to be successful in that certification exam. And many of these are available at Northern Virginia Community College. They're available virtually and in person. And then for those students who do qualify, there's something called the G3. It is an income eligibility, so you have to be quite well below the poverty level line. But that would cover 100% of the course of study and for sitting the exam. And for example, for Fast Forward, the ones at Northern Virginia Community College, you can do as many as you want. You can't do them all at the same time, but you can do as many as they'll offer. So if you're even a student at Virginia Tech, if you are a Virginia resident, you are eligible to take some of these courses and to get some of these credentials that will set your resume apart when you go to search for a job. And as Salil was saying, there are some that are less technical, and then getting into more technical. So you don't have to be an engineer in order to sit for some of these exams, but there are resources available for Virginia residents to pay for like a boot camp or a course, and to pay for the credential itself, because some of these credentials can run up to about $1,000, and that can get expensive when you're just trying to set your resume apart. So take a look at that. That resource is available to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. That's great.
But also at times, right? I think, when you join a company, and let me tell you, like, there are a lot of cyber jobs open today in the market, right? I mean, US wide, there are many jobs which are cyber jobs which have been unfilled. So when you join a company, they would shadow you all within their senior employees, and then they would also push for these certifications. So that is another way, to get, and that's totally funded by the companies.
Perfect. So we had a couple questions in the chat, and I just kind of want to touch on these really quickly. One of the questions was, how do I kind of determine where I want to specialize? And guys, that info Salil just gave was so great. Such a good insight into what all the different options are. And kind of along what we're doing tonight, the way to really understand beyond getting an internship and trying it out is by networking with folks in the industry and asking questions. So being here is a great first step. These folks on the call would be really good to connect on LinkedIn with and, kind of keep in touch and understand what's going on in their world. But this is the kind of thing that you should be doing if you're trying to understand, where do I see myself in the future? The other question we got was, how do I stand out in the process? And I always think the question specifically was, how do I stand out without a lot of experience? And I think there's a big misconception as far as like, okay, what's the magic trick with my resume, or what can I do to kind of get those callbacks? The info that Ali was talking about really is the answer to that question, and Salil as well, because getting those certifications, demonstrating your technical skills. This is a very technical field, whether that's through certifications or you can demonstrate projects, or you can get some short-term projects or shadowing. It needs to really be able to demonstrate how you can do those technical and apply those skills in your future position. So just kind of thinking about that with those great questions. So another question.
Something I can add, is also, it is very important. I mean, in case if you're on LinkedIn, of course, right? So you should network, you should attend events like this, where industry experts come in, senior leaders from the industry come in, they talk about, and then, right, I mean, keep networking with them. Try to see if you can attend as many interviews, as many events as you can. That is the most important thing. And the other thing is, if you can write some blogs, right? I mean, do some research on what is happening, or if an industry leader has written about something, read about it, go research, and then comment about it as well, right? I mean, so that process also will set you a little apart. And then do some research. I mean, I've already talked about quantum computing. Look at quantum computing, right? I mean, I know you guys are more from a business perspective, but look at quantum, from a business perspective. Look at the use cases that are going to be out there, and write snippets, right? Small snippets, maybe like a paragraph on that, and put it out there, right? And all those sort of things, you can link it to your resume. And once you link it to your resume, let's say a resume comes to me or one of my team members, we look at it and there are 10 resumes. Obviously, we are going to pick up that resume which we are interested in, and if there's a topic of interest for us, we're going to be picking up your resume. And that is how you guys could probably land up your first interview as well.
Yeah, I want to reiterate on that, because I think back on myself. My first IT cyber job was from a friend, a college friend, right? Networking is huge, especially at the beginning. I was telling an intern the other day, at this point in my career, I would say at least half of the jobs I've gotten are based off of connections, and I know they do cyber happy hours in certain areas. They do lunch and learns with certain vendors. Getting yourself out there, making friends, making connections in the industry is probably going to be the most important thing to get your career jump started, because these are the people that are in those organizations. And I will say, as a hiring manager, when somebody comes to me and says, hey, I know this person and I know they're really good at this and that, we're going to give them the benefit of doubt. We're going to bring that individual in and we're going to interview them at least. We're going to get them in front of those individuals that are decision makers. So it is really, really important to have that interconnections with those folks, because that's important. It's why you go to a school like Virginia Tech and all those places, because you're going to be around other people who are going to be successful and moving in different directions. And you want to be able to levy those individuals when you need to.
So another question we have from a student, and one we already planned to talk about, what cyber threats should students be aware of today? And what new challenges might they face as they enter the workforce? Justin, I'm going to have you start on that one.
Oh, well, I talked briefly about the deepfakes issue. As of right now, the threats are constantly evolving, right? So, I don't work in that world. I have individuals who work for me, and all they do all day long is deal with threats, right? There's an individual role, for that. We have cyber analysts, and they work within our SIEM solution. They're getting all that information in, and then they're bouncing it off of the network, and they're doing all that correlation. We have a lot of managed service providers, a lot of organizations out there, because a company like my size, which is less than 1,000, we don't have the budget nor the resources to stand up a huge SOC. If you guys aren't familiar with that term, it's a Security Operations Center. We have to be able to rely on a lot of third-party organizations, do a lot of due diligence. But the threats they're constantly evolving. It's really hard for me to put my finger down on anything as of right now. But the internal threat or the threat of manipulation. So phishing is a big thing for us, right? We constantly we test fish our employees constantly. And our leadership in our company wants that information because it is a huge threat now. It's a huge vector into our organization. Ransomware attacks are always big on our radar. No organization wants to come in one day and find out that their data has been encrypted by some adversarial organization, and then you got to bring in some sort of other organization to help you with that, and you got to figure out, do we pay the ransom, do we not pay the ransom, do we involve law enforcement, do we not involve law enforcement, how long is our network going to be down? That's why when I reiterated at the beginning about how cybersecurity is involved in everything, these are the reasons why, because there's an impact from cybersecurity to how the business operates. And it can be positive, right? As I stated in the beginning, when I came up in doing GRC type of things, where the company wants to go and seek out business. And for them to seek out certain business, they have to meet certain criteria, whether that's NIST or ISO and all these terms that you'll probably find out at some point. And that inhibits us to make money because they come to us and say, hey, this customer wants to see that we meet cyber hygiene at a certain level. So we have to now turn the knobs of IT and cybersecurity and business to make the company compliant with that framework. But the threats are constantly evolving, and whatever threat I name right now, probably tomorrow will be old news and there'll be a new one.
Yep. So that's fantastic, Justin. I think that's great. Answer. But let me also add, from a student perspective, right? So today, what I'm seeing from a student perspective is, folks would come in. We don't know, right? We're having this call, and because there's a lot of social engineering, right? That happens. That means that people, bad actors know who I am, who Salil Shankaran is, right? And they know about me because I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on other social media sites. I do a lot of these events, right? So there are bad actors who are just probably following me, right? And now they know probably I'm doing this event, and you might even get a call, like a deep fake, right? We might even get a call from me. I mean, somebody, not somebody, like a whole deep fake looks like me, talks like me. And they probably might even offer you a job. They might send you an offer letter, right? You guys may get a fake offer letter, and they would want, they probably might even send you a check saying, hey, we'll send you a check, buy a laptop. We're sending you $5,000. Oh, you know what? Laptops is only for $3,000. Go ahead and buy an Apple laptop for $3,000. So there's extra $2,000. Can you remit back that $2,000, right? So that's the biggest fraud that's happening today in the industry, right? So it's a huge social engineering, cyber, a threat that is going on in the schooling sector as of today. So beware of such things, because no company, if they offer you a job, will want the money back, or they would not send any money to you guys to go ahead and buy a laptop, right? So they would because of course there's an imaging system, there's a policy in place, there's a security program that every company has. So please do not fall into that prey of cyber. That's a massive threat. So just beware of it. And let me also tell you, most of the threats happens through a human error, right? So I would say a high percentage, probably over 90% of hacks are happening because either there's an insider threat, or somebody has just put their passwords on the table and left, or the password is password, right, for them. But there is no MFA, as Ali was recommending, no multi-factor authentication. Even if multi-factor authentication is there, right, your phones could be hacked, and they can take the code, and they could come in. So there's that threat, that happens as well. So that's one thing that you have to go through, because most of the companies have a cyber training program at the moment as a part of their orientation. So make sure that you go through that entire program, then you do that certification, and make sure that you understand and it's a bad world. I can only say that it's a bad world out there from a cyber perspective. So we need to be very, very careful and protect ourselves. And it's a human error that causes a lot of these hackings that go wrong.
So I will provide like a high level um, summary of what's going on. And so this is a lot of this in my job uh, doing government affairs. It is also permeates into national security policy. And so one of the things that is really, boiling up right now is back in January, you had four principal cyber directors for the first time in history testify jointly on the House of Representatives Select Committee on the CCP, which is the Chinese Communist Party. Again, it's not Chinese people, it's the government. And you had Jen Easterly, director of CISA. You had Chris Wray, the FBI director. You had then General Paul Nakasone, who was the commander of U.S. Cyber Command in the NSA. And then you had Harry Coker, who is the National Cyber Director out of the White House. And they were talking about something called Volt Typhoon, which is a CCP-sponsored threat actor that has hidden malware in a lot of our OT systems. So OT is different than your IT in that these are the systems that support critical infrastructure. They're not like your laptops or your computers or your printers. They are all of like the engineering systems and widgets that would support a power plant or a water facility. And the list goes on. In the United States, you have 16 critical infrastructure sectors, election security being a subsector. And we kind of already, thankfully have made it through major election system with that. And so what is happening now is we have a lot of nation state actors, whether it's the CCP, the Iranians, the Russians, and to some degree you have the North Koreans, but they're mostly focused on trying to steal cryptocurrency so they can fund their weapon systems. But they are focused on these systems, which majority of them are owned and operated by the private sector. So it's not the government. And so why this is important and why it matters is there will come a point in time where they will have potential capability to disrupt or degrade our critical infrastructure. So you would think, well, what's the big deal? Well, you don't want somebody tampering with your water. That's a really big deal. You don't want them in your power. You don't want them in your banks. You don't want them in your municipalities. We saw during COVID, there was a huge spike, and there's certainly still an issue around ransomware. And we were like, well, that's a business problem. Where does that really permeate into health and safety? Well, we've seen it a lot with hospitals, and it's really devastating for smaller hospitals and clinics because they invested in automation. So what happens when all your systems are tied up because you invest in automation? You can't call a 1-800 nurse number. And there has been studies on this that show that disrupting a hospital so you can't get your medication, people can't access your forms, all of that can have impacts on mortality rates. And so it really has, crossed a threshold where it can hurt people, and adversaries know that, and they are looking for opportunities to do that. And so just want to put that on your radar as well, that in addition to the core business attributes that you also have health and safety that you need to consider.
That's a great point that Ali brought in about OT systems, right? Operational technology. So there are systems like SCADA systems, Allen Bradley, Siemens systems, and all that. So right now these systems are on-prem, and being on-prem also they are being hacked right, left, and center, right? So think about it. The next level, because it's also generating a lot of data, and in case if you need to share data or get the data consumed by an API, the entire systems have to go digital, right? And so what the moment it goes digital, the moment it goes on the cloud, the attacks of this critical infrastructure will go by many folds. So it's very, very important that because and the other thing is IT systems are managed by the Chief Information Security Officer, but the OT systems are not managed by the chief information security officers, right? It is managed by the chief engineers. Now, chief engineers think that the IT guys do not know what the OT systems are, and CISO wants to get in and tries to train all these engineers, telling them that hey, it's very very important that you secure your OT systems. So I mean, to make it short, there's going to be a lot of opportunities on the OT side as well.
Thank you all for that. And I have a quick follow-up question, and I'm not going to pick on anyone, just anyone who wants to share. For students who are still getting their education, is there anything they can be doing to stay up to date with these changes? Justin, you mentioned how quickly everything changes and different threats. Is there anything students can be doing, subscribing to, keeping in touch with to keep up to date with that?
Justin, you're muted.
Ali mentioned CISA. Going on the CISA website, I get the notifications from them almost daily. They will let you, it's a federal organization. They will give you those notifications regularly about ongoing threats and things. We rely on that heavily. There are a ton of resources out there. We do a lot of interactions with MITRE, which is I think FFRDC organization. But just scouring the internet, finding good resources and subscribing to them so you get those notifications. You can become well read in those things. So when you do go through an interview, because that's really the end game here for this conversation, you can talk intelligently about what's going on in the cyber landscape, and that's extremely important.
And you could also ask questions about those things in interviews, right? So if you're following these people on LinkedIn and they're posting articles that they found interesting of something that happened, and then you get into an interview and you go, so-and-so posted an article on LinkedIn and I read it and I'm wondering what you're doing about it. Or I'm wondering how this would impact your business. Or I'm wondering, that is an intelligent question that shows that you care about the environment, like the large environment, shows that you have done some homework. It shows that you care about the business. Shows that you are thinking critically. And so you don't have to have all of the answers when you go into an interview. When they ask you, do you have any questions for me? That is your time to ask an intelligent question that says, I'm wondering about this thing that's in current events, and I'm wondering how your business is handling that, or I'm wondering what your response is, or has that impacted you at all? And things like that just show a level of critical thinking.
I love that. I hope you guys all wrote those 2 answers down. Those are really, really great tips for interviews. I'm going to take some questions from the chat now. Just some really great questions coming through. How important is it to have a personal projects or portfolio in cybersecurity? And any suggestions on what they should be including, if so?
So it's very important to have something that you do personally on cybersecurity. I would say you can pick up supply chain, right? Because a lot of threats are coming through third parties and fourth parties and fifth parties, right? When you have an entire supply chain, right? So you need to make sure that your third parties, that means your suppliers, are equally qualified as well as equally cyber safe as you are. Whether it is their operational risk, financial risk, cyber risks, even ESG, right? How good are they on the environmental sustainability and governance side? And most importantly, modern slavery, right? So look at each topic and build something from that perspective, and then you can write anything on a SOC 2 Type 2 audits, or a payment card industry audits, or high trust, right? Everything is all about PII information. So you have HIPAA audits, and then you have the high trust framework, which is out there. It is high trust, HITRUST. It's in demand right now, and not too many people who are doing high trust. So look for companies, who are high trust certified companies who could do audits, and talk to them, follow them. So yeah, that's what I would say.
I would also say if you have internships or other projects that you did, school projects that you did that have a really a defined deliverable, an end product that I would highlight in your resume when you are going to apply for jobs, and think of that as your portfolio. So if you did 2 summer internships and a couple of extra projects or a capstone project or something, if you package those together, those are a portfolio of work that you can show in cyber. And you would highlight those in your resume by, saying in your past experience, yes, you want to say that you had your summer internship at yada yada, and these are the, some of the duties. But what you really want to focus on is this is the deliverable, right? So I had my summer internship at XYZ, well, at Allie's company at Scout, right? And I worked under Allie directly, and this was my main deliverable. I don't really care about your day-to-day tasks. What I care about is the project, the finished product. At the end of your internship, what was the thing that you could say, this is what I did? And that's how you would shape that on your resume in terms of a portfolio of projects that you've worked on in cyber.
Expanding on that really quickly, I have an intern that reports to me right now. We are half of our business is defense, right? And we're in the DC area. Defense contractors are everywhere. And if you guys want to Google, there's something called CMMC that's getting ready to come, to fruition here. And he's been helping me and my team, kind of come to that end of conclusion to be compliant with that. He's doing all the reports. I mean, that's something that's a feather in this individual's cap that he's going to be able to put in. And when he's done our internship, we're hoping we can employ him, but that's not always what happens. He's going to be able to walk away from our organization, interview with other organizations, say, hey, this new requirement that organizations that are going to be doing business with the DoD, hey, I was part of that process. I helped build this out and I helped that organization become compliant. I wasn't just a doer, I was a contributor. And that'll be huge for him.
Mm-hmm. And just to kind of put a finer point on Justin's example with his intern. So when you hear defense, you're like, well, how big is the defense sector? And what is this CMMC thing? For everybody on the call, the defense industrial base is over 300,000 entities. So those are 300,000 potential opportunities that you could go after that CMMC to some level or degree is going to impact. So that's why it's like a really big deal that this particular intern has that on his resume, or she has that on her resume.
And CMMC, again, going back to the government governance, risk, and compliance, which is a very easy segue for someone who is in business to get into, right? So you are dealing with cyber, but you're not, maybe a technical analyst, and that's fine. But learning, understanding, and being able to manage CMMC is going to be a very I'm going to say lucrative opportunity for a lot of students going into the workforce now, because that's a new regulation that's coming out that entities who want to work with the DoD or anyone in that sector are going to have to comply with. So it's a whole new set of regulations. And when regulations comes out, that means jobs. Because someone has to learn it, someone has to implement it, someone has to make sure that everyone's in compliance with it. That's that GRC aspect that Salil was talking about before. That is a really great entryway into cybersecurity if you're not an incredibly technical person.
And it's interesting too, because we talked about threats earlier. So yes, you absolutely have like malicious actors that are looking to break into your systems and create problems. But also on the threat spectrum to your business, and they are not malicious, or at least I will not call them that on this call, but you do have regulators. So depending on where you are, not only do you need to keep the bad people out, which could also, all include insider threat, but you also need to be in compliance, because if you're not, there are consequences there. And so all those things fold into a successful business, and those things are actively being evaluated, and there are opportunities to do both, and it's under kind of like the larger auspice of cyber.
Right. If you're the company that you work for, if they don't play by the rules within the industry that they are working in, if they don't comply with the regulations, they don't play by the rules, they no longer get to work in that industry. That costs them millions of dollars in contracts, and the federal government spends a lot of money on federal contracts. And so that's why we're hitting this home so hard, is that it's an incredibly important aspect for staying in business. And so that's why it matters. That's why when we all say cybersecurity is ubiquitous, it impacts every single part of the business. It even impacts your ability to do business, to stay in business.
And it's extremely challenging because as much as it helps the business really doesn't want to do it. right? They fight it tooth and nail. Your developers, you're making their lives more difficult. You are challenging every aspect of the business. So that's another attribute I always tell my interns, learn how to communicate well, learn how to tell a story, learn how to persuade people. Because at the end of the day, the people I see that struggle in the industry, and they usually stay as analysts because they can't branch out, sit down with the business stakeholders, communicate, change the hearts and minds, because the hardest thing to change in cyber is culture.
Awesome. All right, a couple more questions I'm seeing in the chat. So what is the biggest mistake that you guys have seen from an early career individual in cybersecurity, or even as they're trying to kind of get into the field? And how
Not
can they
ask questions. Yeah, not ask questions.
Okay.
You got to ask questions. I see a lot of people fail in my industry because they think they're the smartest person in the room. You will fail quickly and fast. You have to ask questions. You got to be a good listener. That is key. There's people in the organization in both the IT and the cybersecurity and the business realm that are probably going to be smart. There, a lot of people smarter than me. But my job is to sit down and just ask them questions and learn from them, take that information. But folks have to, I think it's really hard now. We're in a digital world to communicate, but you got to sit down. You just got to ask questions and learn.
I would say not networking. And I know that it isn't this like Gucci, technical skill that, everybody's going to pay you like $500,000 for, but really not having appreciation and actively looking to grow your community, because those are resources. And not only could some of these folks be mentors, they can be advocates for you. So what is the difference between a mentor and an advocate? A mentor is somebody who might give you some like good advice. They might pat you on the head and send you on your way. But an advocate is somebody who makes an investment in you and will actually pick up the phone or send an email that says, I have this incredible person. They've really demonstrated some great characteristics. They're qualified. I think you should hire them. I want to send them in as a referral for employment, or I want you to interview them. That helps you navigate around this HR firewall that exists across the industry. And so there's only one way where you can increase your odds of being a referral and then having people that could last your entire career if you make an equal investment in those relationships as well. But if you decide, oh, I can just do this by myself, I can work by myself, I don't want to, it looks like a softer skill. What does it even mean? I think you do yourself a disservice.
And so again, I went to Virginia Tech. When I moved around the country after graduating, the first thing I did was look up the Hokie Alum Network to watch football games. But they became work network people, right? And in every city I went to, there is a Hokie alum group, and they will usually have a place to go watch football games. They will tailgate together. They will go to football games together, and then you talk to them about work. And they ship you new jobs, right? And they say, oh, I know somebody, or oh, someone's looking. Oh, weren't you looking for something? And then you see them next Saturday and you do it again. And if you're in a sorority or fraternity, same thing. Any kind of those organizations, look for that alumni group in whatever city you wind up in and make your connections there. And you have instant friends, instant social life, and instant networking for jobs. And take advantage of that. See them regularly. I wound up in the job I am today because I went to a Virginia Tech graduate school networking event in Arlington, Virginia. And, one thing happened after another, and here we are. But I put myself out there, and I recognize that, sometimes that's intimidating. But, even just meeting one person can lead to the next thing. I wound up meeting President Sands, who you all know, and he said, you need to meet this person, and this project sounds like it'd be great for you. And here we go. I have our President Sands, to thank for my current job because I went out and networked. And yes, I needed some liquid courage, and that's okay. But go to the networking event, shake the hands, bring the business cards, follow up with people on LinkedIn, whatever it was. Hey, I really appreciated you saying this, and that was really interesting. This article made me think of you, whatever it is, and keep up that networking.
I mean, I would say that a lot of people may not like, but your first job you should go to work. You should work in terms of you should go to an office where there are people, right? That is very, very, very important. First job has to be there. Because you'll meet people, you'll build the level of relationships. It's not just a Zoom meeting where you're just coming for a purpose, and the purpose is done, you're running to the next Zoom meeting, right? So it's very important. So if you have a choice, yeah, and you have a choice, between two companies, one company, is making you work from the office, I would strongly advise first job, take that offer and go to that company that is bringing you, back to office.
Yeah, I want to reiterate that because beginning in my career, I have those relationships still. The camaraderie when everybody's still trying to figure it out and you're figuring it out together. Those individuals I came up with are lifelong friends, and they are part of not just my employment connection, they're part of my social connection. And it's huge. I always joke, if I was to get laid off tomorrow, I'm picking up the phone, I gotta have a job by the end of the week type of thing, right? And that's only because you know people and those people know you and they feel comfortable with you. But that's huge. I totally agree with that.
All right, I know we are coming up on time, and Stephanie, I know you have some really cool information to share with students, so I want to make sure we get to that. Are you going to share a screen?
I can just announce it.
Okay, great. Yeah. Take it away.
Thank you. So thank you so much for this absolutely phenomenal panel. I think we all, especially me, learned a lot of new things about cybersecurity, about making it in the field. And just a quick plug, my organization puts on a tech and cyber career fair every January, and we're expanding it this upcoming January. So instead of one day, we're turning it to 2 days, January 22nd and January 23rd. The first day focused on experienced professionals, cleared talent, veterans, and the second day more focused towards internships and entry-level positions. We are doing everything in our power to make this event for you, for Virginia Tech students, for students all over Virginia. So please, if you live in Northern Virginia, come make it out, take a bus, whatever you can do to get there. We would love to have you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I appreciate you and all of our students as well. Students, please write down these names that you see on the screen. Think about connecting on LinkedIn. You guys have shared such wonderful insights, and I think it just, as you guys have mentioned multiple times, networking is so important. So stay connected, go to these events they're talking about, use the resources they've shared in the chat. This has been so insightful. So thank you all once again, and hope you all have a wonderful evening.